Hello, and welcome to day 2 of Bermuda's Tech Summit 2021. My name is Sheba Raza, and I'm a corporate lawyer in Carey Olsen's London office. I will be moderating today's panel on tech investment trends and the private wealth sector. Bermuda, like other international financial centers, has realized that technology and improved infrastructure is critical to its long-term success. Previous panels in this year's summit will have discussed Bermuda's evolving regulatory landscape, its sophisticated legislation, its ambitions to further develop its digital infrastructure, and its involvement in space, satellite, and subsea telecommunications ecosystems, the transition to more sophisticated data analysis, and a concerted focus by the industry on ESG and sustainable development. Our panel discussion today intends to focus on how these factors converge to allow family offices and private equity firms to diversify their risk and to better harness global investment opportunities through the use of investment strategies, sophisticated corporate structures, and integrated solutions in Bermuda to drive global investment in the tech sector. Joining me on today's panel to share their industry insights are representatives of Bermuda's wealth management, legal, accounting, and consultancy sectors, all with decades of experience in their respective fields. Bruce Jackson, Chief Wealth Management Officer at Clarion Bank, Beth Denman, Corporate Partner at Conyers Bermuda's Bermuda office, and Chris Maiato, Principal at EY Bermuda and Head of EY's Innovation and FinTech Strategy across Bermuda and the Caribbean region. I'd like to start our discussion by asking Bruce the first question. Bruce, how has Clarion leveraged technology to improve its family office offering in what is a very competitive market?
Sure. Thanks, Sheba. We've created a digital platform, and it's interesting. We set out to create access to the types of services and global investment managed platforms that we provide for very high net worth and institutional clients. So we created a robo-advisory platform to provide access to the same level of service and global diversification. What we found is that the families that we're dealing with in every case have some issue of generational transfer angst or stress or planning, or there's transitions going on all the time. What we've actually discovered is that this digital platform that we designed to give access to sophisticated investing for smaller investors is actually being very, very well received by the families themselves, who find it useful internally to help with education and with just basically alignment and fair dissemination of information, but in describing their own sort of platform to family members. It's become a very useful tool, quite kind of by accident, actually.
Do you have any examples of how Bermuda's ability to offer these types of robust investment solutions has created an opportunity for your clients to invest in the tech space?
Yeah, actually, a couple of different ways. So, we're very quickly becoming known, Bermuda that is, as being very tech friendly, whether it's for typical fintech or crypto type of investment solutions or whatever. But so we just being open-minded, pursued, and it was actually referred by Beth's firm. A transaction to list a Brazilian-based high-tech venture capital fund listed in Bermuda. Turnkey all of the elements, help them with the listing and the structuring and the syndication, et cetera, of that. But ultimately, what we're allowing is investors in another country, in this case is Brazil, to access U.S. technology venture capital type of investments through a structure in Bermuda. It's done in Bermuda because we have a squeaky clean regulatory environment. It's easy to get things done. We have very sophisticated people that we can help shoulder, I should say, the burden. But it was that simple, use of an ability to do something in Bermuda that's provided access to early stage technology investing for regular investors in a country that couldn't previously do it.
That's fantastic.
It's probably worth noting, Bruce, too, that one of the real advantages and why that particular product, I think, worked in Bermuda was that and just to give you some background, effectively, this structure using a Bermuda company allowed investors to either invest in the company through a Bermuda Stock Exchange listing and buying common shares, or on the Sao Paulo market, there were Brazilian depository receipts. So it was a way for the Brazilian market effectively to invest within, this underlying pool of assets that people were interested in. But Bermuda, because it has such a vibrant economy with a variety of service providers, we were able to sort of put together, the Bermuda Stock Exchange, which is internationally recognized, together with, Conyers and Clarion, sort of on the investment kind of roadshow side of things, to really come up with a product that I don't think you could do anywhere else, because it really is the service providers that allowed us to structure that. And one of the interesting things was that Bruce's firm actually kind of did an old-fashioned roadshow, and investors in Bermuda were able to participate in the structure. So it really was a genesis of a sophisticated product with world-leading service providers and an excellent stock exchange that then had a global product, which also had a local sort of element to it.
Yeah. The neat thing about it too, Beth, was that so the families, like we deal with a number of large families, and they like to group invest. They trust each other, and no offense to anyone here, including myself, they trust each other more than they trust service providers, right? And so when we have one family is doing something, they quite often will network with each other, sometimes through us. But you say old-fashioned. It was old-fashioned. We just networked the deal, and we socialized it, and it was something that has had sort of knock-on effects. We have other significant family offices who are looking to do similar type of vehicles in Bermuda, whether they're going to keep all the investments for themselves or network with a group of families and deal share. It's just a very quick turnkey type of a platform that gives them 100% confidence in all the technical attributes of dissemination and visibility and transparency and access and everything. But what we really had was the network. We had the network here in Bermuda of sophisticated investors who say, yeah, I'll look at that. Sure. It was a combination of access and network that was really enabled through the technology.
Fantastic, thank you. Beth, what other types of structures do you tend to see your private equity clients and other family office clients that you work with also utilize in Bermuda? Are there any other structures that you've come across more frequently you could talk to us about?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Bruce sort of, mentioned the idea that I think families tend to flock together, and if there's if they're operating at a very high level, they will want to share investment opportunities. So one of the really nimble products that I see clients using is our segregated account company legislation, which effectively allows you to create one legal entity, but have separate segregated accounts or classes. And each of these segregated cells is ring-fenced from an asset and a liability perspective. So you can house different investment opportunities in different cells very easily and not have kind of a cross-class contagion from a risk perspective. So to give you an example, I've got one family that is very active in the private equity space, and they've been very successful in the investments that they've made. So they will, put one investment in the latest Chinese kind of coffee, franchise that's being set up. They'll partner with other families to go into that private equity investment, and it'll be housed in a single segregated account. And it really has been nimble from the standpoint that you basically do a structure-wide offering document. Then when you're ready to launch each segregated cell, it's a 2-page document outlining what the investment opportunity is. And it really, you can take a new strategy to market in a matter of days. It's very straightforward. And I think there's other models that we're seeing, and I think that shows, Bermuda reacts to the environment and to the market that's out there to deliver the products that the international kind of client base needs. So we have, for instance, a few years ago, we introduced limited liability companies, which are very much kind of in vogue in the US. Other jurisdictions did this at the same time, but I think what was really unique about our LLC is that effectively we took, the original legislation in Delaware and imported it into Bermuda. So unlike jurisdictions that sort of brought in a lot of common law concepts that were somewhat alien, I would say, to the US market, we literally took the Delaware LLC legislation lock, stock, and barrel and planted it into Bermuda with only minor changes on the liquidation provisions. So it looks and feels, to an American audience, identical to what the Delaware LLC will look like. And it's a great model because it's also a very flexible structure. You can decide to waive financials, you can decide what your fiduciary duties are, you have the flexibility of a limited partnership, but you've got the certainty of a company structure from limited liability and sort of other provisions that you might want to make sure that you've got. Also, the limited partnership is alive and well in Bermuda, and that's probably the structure that I do see most private equity vehicles using, because it gives the promoters of those structures the ability to build in complex fee arrangements, waterfalls, what have you, within the actual structure itself. So rather than having an outside investment management agreement, you'll have everything within your limited partnership agreement, and your manager will effectively, or your general partner will take their profits through a Carey as a special limited partner, as a general partner. So it gives you the ability to really structure what you want, how you want it. The other real advantage too of the Bermuda limited partnership is that you can elect to have separate legal personality, which means that the partnership in and of itself is a legal entity. So it can sue, it can be sued, and it has an existence away from its partners, which is quite unique and a feature of our limited partnership legislation.
And are you seeing private equity clients using this in the context of technology activities, so startup funds, digital asset business? And what's their relationship with the regulator and the BMA more generally in terms of this new evolving space?
Yeah, I think, we've got a variety of fund structures. So there's quite a lot of tech investment that's happening within funds, as a target investment. Private funds are sort of, if you've got a vehicle and you've got less than 20 investors and you want to start, on a PE opportunity or, a digital asset investment, it's a good way to sort of get that track record and operate for a little while, very light touch, because there's really, once you've set up, there's only annual reporting to the Bermuda Monetary Authority, which is the regulator for investment funds. We also have professional closed-end funds, so where you've got a multitude of sort of private equity assets, you might put them into a professional closed-end fund, which again, no limit on the number of investors. They do have to be qualified participants, sophisticated high net worth individuals, but it gives you the ability again to sort of pool assets. It's probably worth noting, Sheba, too, though, that if you have a private equity investment, if there's only a single investment within the structure, that falls outside of the scope of the Investment Funds Act. So that really can be housed, in a company or a limited partnership pretty easily without any regulatory oversight. So that's another vehicle we see quite often sort of in the private equity sphere of things.
Great, thank you. And I think one of the things that Bermuda is quite unique in is that it has very specific legislation around digital businesses and digital assets. So my understanding is that there are some amendments being proposed to streamline the regimes that apply to both investment funds, investment business, and the digital asset business side. Could you and Chris perhaps give us a little information on that and how that then drives business towards Bermuda as we look to evolve the regulatory landscape within which people can operate?
Yeah, and I can actually give you a case study, Sheba, too, as well, that the Bermuda Monetary Authority has really structured itself so that as a single regulator, there is the investment management, asset management sort of division that looks after that pillar. But then there's also a dedicated, as you've said, there's a dedicated digital asset team that is very involved in this space and with the legislation that is coming out in that area, which I know that Chris has been involved with. I find at the moment that the BMA are really partnering with clients, because I've got clients coming out with very interesting things. For instance, at the moment, I have a client who wants to set up a captive and effectively provide an insurance solution. And the collateralization of that entity is going to be a combination of cash and tokens. So that's a very different structure, especially in the insurance space. And we've, the BMA have been very open to sit down with the tech team and the insurance team at the same time and talk through what's happening and help the client kind of think about different risk issues that they maybe haven't. So definitely the BMA is a partner, I think, in this area, and really, I think, is leading internationally on the digital asset space as well. Chris, I don't know, sort of what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with what's been said so far. I mean, the BMA, from the inception of looking at digital assets as an asset class that they wanted to regulate, has always been open to having conversations with new and innovative companies. I think the other interesting element with the regulator is that they recognize that it's not a static space. And so the continuous sort of review of what are we doing today, how can we make an improvement in the legislation is a tack that they're taking to know and understand that this space changes dramatically and quickly. And that the ideas that they may have thought about a few years ago when they were coming up with the Digital Asset Business Act changes and shifts. Everybody's going to come up with a different business model that they may or may not have thought about. And the great thing is that they're very open to understanding what is somebody doing. The answer isn't no out of the gate because it doesn't fit within a mold. It's how can we help? How can we take the risk-based approach that we have and apply our regulations appropriately, to protect the consumers, to protect the jurisdiction as a whole. And so I do see that they have a very unique approach as a regulator to make sure that there's a level of practical collaboration to see how things can progress forward in a very regulated environment approach.
So in light of that level of innovation and product development, what are the other key drivers that you would say push business towards Bermuda and allow Bermuda to succeed on the international stage in this space?
It's a great question. And it's also different for each tech company or innovation minded organization that's coming to Bermuda. But generally, the regulatory environment is critically important. Especially as we look in sort of the digital asset space and then outside the digital asset space. I think that's huge. The other element is really around the access from Bermuda to the international markets. We've got a great regulator, as I've mentioned. We're well respected in other jurisdictions. We're a central financial services sector for the world for the most part. And so Bermuda is well recognized as a great location to do business from, not just do business in. We've talked a little bit about the legal structures here, and I think Beth and Bruce have both mentioned all of the great sort of service providers here as well. The talent pool is also critically important. We've got a lot of great people, both in the service industry and then outside of the industry in the tech sector, that are sort of moving forward and reskilling to get into the spaces that are being demanded by some of the new innovative startups. The great thing, we also have a great insurance industry here that's already present and established, and so that brings a wealth of knowledge both in the financial services sector, but also provides accessibility from a lot of organizations who want to take advantage of that insurance market, whether it be the data, the information, the distribution channels, to see how they can build upon their successes. The other interesting element as well has been, at least what we've heard back, is a bit of the speed to market. We've heard a little bit, from Beth about the different product offerings that they have from a structuring standpoint. It is easy in Bermuda in comparison to other jurisdictions to get through the process of getting a company incorporated, meeting with all the folks that you need to meet with, and then launching a product through innovative mechanisms. So the speed to market is critical. The legal entity structures combined with the regulatory collaboration does really help organizations move forward at pace with a regulator who understands them in a legal structure that is actually beneficial to the investors as well as beneficial to the end sort of users. But Beth, I know you've seen quite a bit of this. I'd welcome your thoughts on other things that may drive business here to Bermuda.
Yeah, and I think you can't underestimate the importance of having a very responsive regulator, and that ability to sort of send an email and say, look, can we jump on a Zoom call to talk about issues or a new product offering? I think it makes us quite unique. And I know personally, I know all the members of the BMA, on a first name basis. We talk, we collaborate. When the BMA is looking at new legislation, it reaches out to industry to consult and to make sure that it, fits for purpose and balances that need for effective regulation, with also, the recognition that Bermuda is a jurisdiction of sophisticated clients. So there is a balancing act between the two. And I think that's very key. And I think, we've said it before, but you can see me as your lawyer at 10, by 10:30, you can go over and see Chris and talk audit. And then you can wrap it all up by seeing Bruce, for lunch. We're all within sort of a square mile of each other. And because we have so many different sort of pillars in our economy, with insurance, with banking, with funds, you've got a very sophisticated talent pool of service providers that are innovative, and I think just a classic example is the Insurance-Linked Securities Fund, where you've got insurance meeting fund with a brand new product. So you'll normally see, I think, Bermuda on the cutting edge of new initiatives and new products, and that's something that we're very proud of as a jurisdiction.
And I think one of the things that your role, Chris, also highlights is, as a leader of innovation and fintech strategy across the region, you must be seeing opportunities for clients to invest in new technologies, both in Bermuda and the surrounding regions. So for Bruce's clients and Beth's clients, what would be the key sort of hotspots that you're seeing where startup capital is required and people have an opportunity to invest in Bermuda using Bermuda structures?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, the capital flow is looking at a couple of different areas. One is organizations as a whole are looking to refresh their technology platforms to try to offer a differentiated product to the market. And for that takes some capital. Some of it is driving aggregation in the market through M&A activity. And so there's an opportunity for investment there where you're merging two companies to try to spread the cost of the investment in technology across a wider base. So we're seeing a little bit of that. And then also Bermuda, given its, what we've talked about earlier, we are seeing an inbound group of folks coming in looking to take advantage of the Bermuda platform. And so there's opportunities to invest, in structures and in platforms in Bermuda that are going to use Bermuda to go and access the rest of the market. So we are seeing quite a bit in the insurance space, obviously. With Bermuda's predominance in the insurance sector, we're seeing a lot of new insurtechs pop up that are either taking advantage of data and technology to come up with a differentiated product or a differentiated way to select risk and price risk. So that's been very interesting. There's some opportunities for investment there. We're also seeing, the continued investments in some of the digital asset providers, as Beth has mentioned as well. Earlier there's a couple of new and interesting companies happening there. We are seeing quite a bit in the payment space, where organizations are looking to start and structure companies, either their sort of payment and banking space, whether it be a peer-to-peer structure or a B2B structure. We're seeing some opportunity sets there where, organizations are looking to do payments in a very, very different way from a structure out and in Bermuda. So it is quite diverse in terms of the opportunity set. It's a question of where do folks want to get in and how do they want to invest into the market. With all of the investments, there comes risk. It is fast-paced, it is moving quickly, and so there is quite a bit of opportunity there, and folks do need to take their time to understand the underlying technology, what the organizations are trying to do, and how they're differentiated, from some of the competitors. So there is a lot of opportunity, but there's risk, and so making sure that everybody can capitalize on the right opportunities is important. I don't know if Beth or Bruce, you had anything else that you'd like to add in terms of what you're seeing as well as opportunities.
Yeah, I'll do a couple of things. First, like when we, as a bank, we're obviously in a bit of a corner when it comes to cryptocurrency, digital currency, what we can and can't do. We can't treat it like a fiat currency. So we went through over the course of really the last 18 months, a capabilities matrix. What can we do? What can't we do? What do clients need us to do? And what do we don't have to worry about? Because we know that banking has gone digital. Our competitors aren't who we think they are. They're quite often banks that some of the people here haven't heard of yet. So we looked at it. Well, we can help them open their initial custody bank account in Bermuda. We'll charge them for that, obviously, but we don't have a problem doing that. If it's a cryptocurrency, we can help them get access through the BSX and create an ETF that invests in crypto exchange in the NASDAQ, for example. We're looking at all the services we can do. Quite often, these companies, these fintech companies, just need a group or an advisor or whatever that understands what they're doing, understands that it's just another type of venture capital, but they need services. They need a bank account. They basically need someone who recognizes their assets as collateral. So I think that collectively, what Bermuda has done is, by trying to solve this problem, we've educated ourselves so we know enough that we can treat the companies, we can recognize the asset that they're creating, whether it be for banking or something else. So I think we're learning every week of what we can and can't do, and we're increasingly doing more than we were. We're doing a lot more than we were a year ago with fintech and crypto companies.
Great, thank you. So in the last couple of minutes, before we close the discussion, I'd like to ask each of you to come up with one key takeaway that you'd like our audience to take away in terms of highlighting why investors should consider Bermuda as a jurisdiction for tech investment or for traditional assets, and how we as a jurisdiction are competing increasingly in this global competitive marketplace. Beth, can I start with you?
Sure. I think my takeaways would be, flexibility, expertise, and innovation. I think those are the three real pillars of Bermuda at the moment at what we're offering the international world. We're not a, one-stop shop with only one pillar. We've got a variety of pillars operating in the jurisdiction, and that in itself leads to collaboration, leads to innovation, and allows us to operate on a very sophisticated level in a seamless fashion, quite frankly.
Great, thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Bermuda is a very attractive destination because we have a squeaky clean regulatory environment, but technology's allowed us to give full transparency and privacy in the same breath, which is actually quite something. It's enabled clients or potential clients who want to do something in the island to access very sophisticated networks. And but it really is, it's a juxtaposition of privacy and transparency in a strong regulatory environment with strong senior level advisory people available on one ring.
Chris, just one key takeaway from you, please. I think everyone's taken quite a few of what you might be looking to say.
Absolutely, and maybe I'll sum it up a little bit. I mean, Bermuda is a great innovative platform that it's proven. It's a proven platform from a regulatory legal structure standpoint to really have a collaborative environment of which to launch a company from, or make an investment in a company and then grow. The other thing we haven't really gotten into is the great infrastructure that we have here as well for allowing these organizations to be very successful, not just from a service providing standpoint and all the talent that we've got on the island, but also infrastructurally, we've got a very, very good base as we've been operating internationally in the financial services sector for years. So I think it's, holistically everything around the reg, as well as the reputation, but also the infrastructure, the people and the services.
Thank you. So I think we can all agree technology is key to Bermuda's long-term critical success, but ultimately it's about the island and the people and the services that you're able to provide. I'd like to end by thanking my three panelists for sharing their thoughts on what will no doubt become a growing investment trend. Thank you all for watching us today. We hope the discussion provided some food for thought as you and your clients consider future investment opportunities. There will be a short live Q&A session with the panelists after this session, so do stick around if you'd like to join us. Alternatively, if you wish to contact us directly, please connect with us on LinkedIn or request our contact details from the BDA. The next panel in today's summit is discussing digital identity and the transformation of financial services. Enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.